Okay guys, chapter 20 of Phoenix Incandescent, and this one's called Gula. Charlotte stared down past her bloody hands at the bits of white snow still visible between the stains of war. She wanted to smack her complaining self from yesterday. What was body odor when confronted with the stench of war? She looked up at her hands, bloody on the inside and the outside, and wondered how much of the outside blood was hers and how much was not. She couldn't relax her fingers. How long had it been? She couldn't remember. How old was she? Surely she was a year older. Surely that's how long she had gripped her weapon. Could a person age a year in a day, in hours? Somebody called her name. She turned to follow the familiar voice, and her boot stepped down with a crunch. A hand. She had taken life. She didn't feel regret about killing the biters, but the fawns and the other magical creatures left a sinking hole in her gut. The worst feeling was knowing that she would never know if those she killed were all on the wrong side or not. The fawns had been everywhere, and she couldn't tell one side from the other. All she had known was an urge to save her own life. All she could feel was the fear of death. All she could think was to live. Charlotte, the voice said firmly in front of her. A familiar hand came down between her hands and rested on her weapon. I need to rest and eat. Do you need that too? Yes, she managed. Come then. The hand took her hand and led her through the battleground and back to the barn. She stared at the hand for a long time. Then she blinked, and the hand grew into an arm and then led to a body, and she remembered him as she squeezed his hand. He smiled back at her and nodded. His wings were painted with blood, and they brushed the snow beneath them. The barn was a welcome sight. Charlotte remembered her fingers first, then her toes. All around, her bodies packed into the barn until it was tight with body heat. She looked around at the haggard faces. They were all bloody and tired. She thought of the granola in her bag. How would they feed this many people? She rubbed her hands together slowly and looked at Lodestar, who stood quietly in the middle of the barn. You should be proud of yourself. Bo leaned into her slightly. I'm proud of you, and not one bit surprised. She looked over at him. Hair oily and bloody, missing feathers. She squeezed his arm. You should be proud of yourself, too. A fawn pushed between them. Zarok cleared his throat. The barn quieted of chatter. Charlotte remembered then. The battle was not over. She shivered and leaned into Bo. He gripped her arm and held her tight against his side, but he didn't say anything. She was glad for it. She didn't want his words right now, only his presence. I remember the smell from long ago, Lodestar started. If you survive this battle, you will never forget the smell. It is pungent. It soaks into your very brain cells. Her eyes snapped shut for a second. She shuddered, then her eyes snapped back open. The Magani we fight next is named Gula. She is an ancient queen of the Wolverines of the North. The room erupted in an ebb and flow of whispers until Zarok silenced them all again. Lodestar didn't snap at them like Charlotte was expected to her, too. Instead, she merely picked up where she had left off. Gula is half Wolverine. She hasn't ventured from her home in hundreds of years, so none of you has likely heard much, if anything, of her. Her loyal subjects accompany and protect her wherever she goes. They are fierce fighters and are known for being able to take down a centaur much easier than most Magani can manage. Sorry. I just realized that I've never put on my map where exactly Gula comes, and I usually have mapped like all my creatures, so I'm gonna add that soon. Okay. I don't know where I was, so if I repeated a sentence, I'm sorry. There was a hush in the room then. Even those who had whispered through that part of her speech stopped after her last sentence. Our best chance of surviving this battle is to thin the Wolverines, Zarok said. Gula will likely retreat if she thinks there's a chance she will be vanquished, or that too many of her subjects will die. So she's half animal. Most of us in this room are the same, Fauna shrugged. I don't see what the problem is. Let's take our pets and be done with this. Lodestar shoved her way through the crowd until she stood in front of Faunus. Gula is a beautifully hideous creature. She is charming with lovely and deadly. She has a mouthful of daggers and a heart rotten with greed. Fauna shrugged again, but stayed silent. Lodestar fixed him with her glare. She lowered her voice. She used to be a nightmare of the fawns. After all, your young make a tasty snack for her and her subjects. Faunus looked away. Most of the fawns looked down at their hooves. An adult fawn would make a good meal, Lodestar continued. Then we will make sure they starve, Fauna yelled from the side of the barn. Yes, the fawns cried out, they will starve. Charlotte had to smile. Fauna had a strength she admired. She thought she even caught a tiny smile across Lodestar's face. "We should go out and meet her," Alcott said as he stood. "If she is as fierce as you say, then the best thing would be to face her head on. Waiting here will give her the impression that she has us trapped and we will hide from her." "How close do you think she is?" Faunus asked. "There is no way to be certain," Lodestar said. "She could be right out the door for all I know. The heavy snowstorm to confuse us is a classic part of her attack plan." "She will be near the stronghold," Zerok said. "Oscar paid her to protect it. Once we get past her, we should be able to access the stronghold and face Oscar." Faunus spoke then. "We should go soon then, while there is plenty of daytime. If we are able to scare Gula away, then the storm should subside, right?" "Yes." 15 minutes, Zerok barked. "Warm yourselves. Prepare yourselves." Ebby landed on Charlotte's back and settled across her shoulders, her tail dangling down her left arm. Charlotte reached up and rubbed the spot between Ebby's eyes. "The Unitar leaves much unsaid." Charlotte reached up with her other hand and stroked Ebby's back. She thought of Lodestar. How old was she? What story did she not tell? How many stories has she not told? "I've never seen her so unsteady." "Keep that in mind as you prepare for your next battle. An enemy who frightens Lodestar should terrify the rest of us." "Ebby, I killed." "So did I." "Have you killed before?" "No, child. I am new to this form, and I did not have to kill in my other form." Her head shot up. "Well, did I kill that raven?" "No." "Then no, I have not killed before." She stretched her claws out against Charlotte's shoulders and curled her long neck in front of Charlotte's neck. "I have no feelings about killing. I suppose you do." "Yes." "You did well today." She nibbled Charlotte's ear. "Your parents will be proud." Charlotte slapped her hand on their ear and pulled back. "I'm bleeding." "Affection from a dragon is rare, my dear, and not without its troubles. You should feel honored." "Oh, and where should I return the honor?" Ebby snapped a mouthful of flames up in the air and jumped off her shoulders. Charlotte walked to Lodestar's side and placed her hand near the Unitar's waist. "What story do you not tell?" Lodestar placed her hand on Charlotte's hand. "Gula killed my parents in front of me." "I'm sorry." "My parents were centaurs. My mother should have given birth to twin centaurs, but she drank from an infused spring of water while traveling near fairylands in the old world very early in her pregnancy. She bore twin unitars instead, one of the light, one of the dark." "What do you mean, of the light and of the dark?" "You have seen the light that Evangeline can create. It provides warmth, comfort, and safety. There is also magic that is dark in this world. It is not spoken of in hopes that someday it may be lost or vanquished." She looked around the room. "But that is foolish. I'm afraid that many Megani have forgotten it exists." "I think they're remembering." Lodestar nodded. "Most of the magic you know is a form of light magic, but its concentration varies depending on the Megani." Charlotte nodded. "You have a high concentration of it." "I do." She stroked her horn. She crossed her hands in front of her belly. "But as strong as my magic is, it also has limitations." She smiled slightly. Lodestar patted Charlotte's hand, still covered by her own hand. "The fairies have many secrets, child. It is true that they have reason to want to keep their potent magic safe, but I fear they have gone too far." She tilted her head to the side and narrowed her eyes. "I wish I could speak to your mother. There is something about you that doesn't add up. There's something to your story that remains unknown." "Could you go into the fairylands?" Charlotte asked, her eyes on a knob in the wood and the floor. "The fairies protect their secrets from even me," Lodestar confirmed. Charlotte started to pull her hand away. "I'm not done yet," Lodestar chided. "It is true that you don't know what you are yet. It is true that you have tried, but you have not tried hard enough." She nodded at Evangeline. "If you do not learn to control and handle your powers, you will continue to burn others from time to time. When you burn them, you leach some of their very being into yours. I do not know if it's permanent or not, but I do know that it happens." Charlotte's eyes widened. "I did that to Beau and Evangeline?" "Yes," Lodestar said. "You have a bit of bronze eagle and elf in you." "That doesn't even make sense," Charlotte objected. "And how can you possibly know that?" "Evangeline can sense it, and I trust her judgment. If it weren't for the fact that Beau had already attached himself to you romantically, he might have also noticed the change." Charlotte took a deep breath in and rubbed her neck. Her ear had stopped bleeding. "I must warn you of one more thing." Lodestar rubbed her neck. "I do not like the feel of any of this. This battle, these kidnappings. These arxes and strongholds. Somebody plans them, somebody who collects." She laid her hand on Charlotte's head and let it fall slowly. "It should go without saying that when the somebody finds out that you exist, he or she will want you for their own. Can you imagine what kind of weapon you could be once trained? You will have to guard your thoughts." "What do you mean?" Charlotte asked. "This somebody will use your negativity and any feelings you may have about your parents covering up the truth of who you are. You will see this in action soon with Oscar." She lowered her voice. "Fauna says many children have reasons to fight against their father. I don't have time to educate you properly on fawn history, but the basic story is that Fauna and Faunus are the parents of all the younger fawns. They often abandon them or ignore them unless it's convenient. Oscar is Faunus's eldest child. I do not know what happened to Oscar, but I'm sure that it was not in his best interest. You must not become an Oscar." "I won't," Charlotte said, but her voice wasn't steady even to her own ears. Sirach barked the room back into focus, and they spilled out into the snow, following Phoebe's lead. Into the wind and snow and unknown, they marched for an hour before finding themselves standing in front of a 12-foot rectangular wall the size of a football field. Standing in an open arc in the wall was a woman with arms and legs of a wolverine, Gula. She wore an asymmetrical blood-red skirt and vest combination with buckles and a hood. 2 snarling wolverines circled her legs. "Welcome." Gula twirled her thick, curly brown hair. "Our fight is not with you," Sirach called out. "Step aside." "Oh, but it is." Gula stepped forward. "And even if it wasn't, I have unfinished business with one of your companions." She bared her teeth, death and rot across the air. "Have you spoken with your sister recently?" "You know the answer to that," Lodestar answered. Gula grinned. "Have you warned them of what I am?" Lodestar smiled. "I have. I warned them of your power and strength, but they seemed unimpressed." Gula growled and snarled. More wolverines joined her from inside the walls. "Your numbers are small." Gula cocked her head to the side. "You have no weavers. Why, you are nothing more than a sad medley of Magani. Fawns have no real power, and they make most of your group." "I'd wager that my children are as fast and as strong as you and your pack," Faunus countered. Gula narrowed her eyes. "My boss is one of your children. I am aware of how fast your fawns are, but I am also aware of how vicious my pack is." She licked her lips. "Are you?" Charlotte noticed Alcott take a few steps back and glance behind them. Gula noticed it too. "Do you hope for reinforcements, dwarf? Have you sent word to the Magard? When do you expect them?" "Sorry, that's 3 times now." "A week from now?" She laughed a monstrous laugh. "Where is your boss?" Alcott asked her. "Why does he not fight his own fight?" "Oh, enough of this," Gula laughed. "Attack them." The wolverines leapt forward and the battle began. Charlotte gripped her quarterstaff and breathed slowly, waiting for the attack to reach her on the back lines. The wolverines leapt and bit and snarled their way through the front line of fawns, who attacked with dagger and swords. The wolverines and fawns were both fast, but the fawns fell faster. Only a couple of wolverines went down. She gripped her quarterstaff and double-checked the knife at her waist. Charlotte watched as Fauna ran through the wolverines, headed straight for Gula, who watched calmly. Fauna raised her arms. A gun was in each hand. Gula smiled. 2 wolverines leapt at Fauna and bit down on her arms. She screamed as they bit down and dragged her in front of Gula, who stepped out from the archway to meet them. Charlotte held her breath. Faunus ran past Gula through the archway. Charlotte watched in agony as Gula pulled Fauna up, bared her dagger-like teeth, and tore the woman's throat. Blood shot out of Fauna and sprayed across the ground. Gula dropped the woman, wiped her mouth, and grinned a bloody grin. Hang on, guys. Okay. Sorry, I have a kid who needs me, but I'm almost done. Ebby flew in circle around the battle and scorched the wolverines from above. Every now and then Charlotte could hear bits of conversation from Ebby, mainly snippets of wishing she were already an adult dragon. The wolverines made their way to Charlotte and Lodestar, who worked together. Across from them, Sirach took his blade to wolverine necks. Bo attacked with bow and arrow from the sky. Alcott had disappeared. Evangeline fought her way toward Gula. Charlotte wanted to yell out at her. What was Evangeline thinking? Didn't she see what happened to Fauna? And what was Faunus thinking leaving his wife like that? He could have attacked Gula from behind. Charlotte focused back on her fight. She hadn't been this flighty since the last battle. Why was she unfocused now? She attacked the wolverines anew and made sure the Lodestar was protected. She focused on her weapon and the enemy. Swing, protect, swing, connect. How many more would they have to kill? How long would this battle last? She glanced over at Evangeline. She was nearly at Gula now. "Evangeline, no!" Charlotte yelled, but the swirling wind and snow carried her warning, her cry away. Charlotte looked up at Lodestar. "Evangeline!" she cried out. Lodestar looked up. "Foolish woman, girl!" she cried out, but she didn't move. "Save her!" Charlotte begged. "This is battle!" Lodestar killed a wolverine and knocked another away. "Save her!" Charlotte insisted. "No." Charlotte ran. She shoved and battled her way through the wolverines. I'm almost done, baby, okay? Evangeline, surrounded by the glow of her magic, fought Gula. Charlotte ran faster. As her feet pounded against the ground, she heard thunder of footsteps. She looked over her shoulder. The Magard had made it. She smiled briefly before she screamed as she felt the teeth of a wolverine slice into her leg. She swung around to connect her quarterstaff with the wolverine. Come here, it's okay. And sent it flying. The pain seared through her leg, but she pushed it aside. She did not want to be attacked again because she wasn't paying attention to the battle around her. The Magard rushed past her, filling in the spaces. They weren't as fast as the fawns or the wolverines, but they were deadlier. They moved as one, and soon all Charlotte could see was a sea of uniforms. They continued to push through to Evangeline. She spied Lodestar and Sirach nearing as well. The wolverines' howls filled the air. Gula yelled at Lodestar over the battle. "You will see me again, old enemy." Gula clapped her hands over her head, and she and the bodies of her pack, dead or alive, all vanished. Charlotte broke through the front lines of the Magard. Evangeline lay on the ground where Gula had been only a moment before. Lodestar knelt down beside her. "She is alive." Lodestar picked the elf up and carried her away. Charlotte fell to her knees. The snowstorm had stopped. The sun shone. The snow-covered ground was littered with fawn bodies. The stench of Gula remained in the air. And I'm joined by a puppy and a baby. So I have got to stop, and I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.